Okay, so I think we're going to start. Feels a bit weird with this mic. Thanks for coming today, everybody. So a bit about this space. This is Daybreak. This was founded by New Blue Magazine, which was founded in 2014 after the sunflower movements. So we seek to be an activist space, to have a space for dialogues and discussions and talks such as this. We are entirely volunteer run, so contributions are appreciated if you'd like to buy a drink or whatever. And so I'll let Evon take it away from here.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you for making this happen.
Of course.
All the work behind the scenes. And thank you everyone for coming here. Thank you for caring about this topic and being part of this. Can I ask, if this is your first time like listening to my talk, can you raise your hand, let me know? When I get a sense. Oh, interesting. Okay, second time. Third. Okay, good. Okay, I see. Okay, so nice to meet you. Let me introduce myself a little bit. 我是邱一芳. My English name is Evon Chiu, and I'm a psychotherapist in Taiwan. But I spent 10 years in the United States, mostly in California. So I'm a founder of Taiwan Multicultural Counseling Association here in Taiwan. Multiculturalism has been a big topic in the U.S., but in Taiwan it's completely new. And for the historical factors, a little bit background. It's sensitive to talk about culture and identity here in Taiwan, especially for the older generations. Yeah, and that's why we have not had multicultural counseling here in Taiwan. So that's something that I really want to decolonize and localize in Taiwan. It's hard, it's very hard. And I also, as a therapist, my clients, because Taiwan license, there's no restriction. Like for California, your clients have to be in California, but Taiwan license, I can see any state or anybody in the world. The majority of my clients are expats, Asian Americans, or Taiwanese living overseas. And the past few years working with them brought us here to talk about intergenerational trauma. Because the more I hear about it, a good thing I have a history background, I realized Taiwan was a colony, and that hugely impacted therapy. How we do therapy in Taiwan. So in the US, they talk about decolonizing therapy, but mostly emphasizing on African American experiences and the historical factors. But decolonizing therapy in Taiwan, we have to take into consideration this is a country of colony for a long time. And there was war, and there was political trauma here. And so that's why when it impacted education and then therapy. Okay, so I do a lot of training, but at my work, I don't know if you have attended any Taiwanese talks or training or classes, you would notice people don't talk, people are pretty quiet. If they're online, usually they turn off the camera, right? Yeah, and why is that? And versus if it's a English-speaking talk or panel, everybody just raise their hand and constantly Q&A question. They want to express themselves, okay? So my friends and I would be joking, well, it's so easy to be a professor in the US. This is my Taiwanese American professor told me, it's so easy to teach a class here. They just talk. So I want to share a little bit experience because I just came back from the US last week. I was at Harvard completing a program called Women of Color Leadership Program. So I was with 88 other women of color leaders there, and I noticed a trend. African Americans are the most outspoken one, and Asians are quiet, even in that leadership setting. And there are different kinds of Asians. So, for example, Singaporean, they speak more than Taiwanese, or Chinese, or Japanese. And we have to take historical factors and educational factors into account for that phenomenon. And survival needs, okay? So maybe for African American women, they have to be heard, they have to be loud, okay? This is important. But for Taiwanese American, it is very obvious, like in Taiwan, if you grew up in Taiwan, you don't talk, you think first, you process. That's how we are taught. Think before you act, think before you speak. And usually in a group setting, you don't talk. At least you don't raise your hand first. In the old days, if you raise a hand, you're the first one to die. So the survival of the fittest. So when I look around the classroom there, like who is the first one to die? Who is being smart? No, just kidding. So that cultural phenomenon. And I wanna share a story about the name badge. So we went to Harvard, we checked in and they gave us a name badge as a welcoming gift. And on my name badge, of course, it has my name and say Taipei, China. And I look at that. I was like, are you kidding me? This is 2024, this is Harvard. And this is how ironic, women of color program. And what is this? What the heck is this? So, but we had orientation, I had to meet people. So you bring your name, oh, what's the name? Where are you from? Oh, you're from China. No, I'm from Taiwan. Oh, then why your badge says China? And then, then I had to explain, right? And eventually I got tired of that. Oh, I can't live like this. So I went to the program office and I complained and I said, I talked to them nicely about how inappropriate this is on the application form. Nationality, there's no option of Taiwan. So I had to be someone else to apply. And then I am not my name on my name tag. Okay, so this is the story of Taiwanese. Okay, this is if this is happening in 2024 in Harvard, okay, just imagine our parents, our grandparents, for generations. This is the story of Taiwanese about their identity and their name, who they are. They cannot be who they are. People decide who they are for them. They don't decide their name, okay? And this is like a deja vu. So in the US, in elementary schools, a lot of Taiwanese American children, they go to Sunday school, Chinese school, right? Who has attended Chinese school in the US? Oh, quite a few, okay. In Taiwan, it's the opposite. We went to English school, cram school. And my generation, they started teaching us ABC in middle school, 7th grade. So it was a very cool thing that you get to learn English in elementary school. But the parents have to send us to those cram schools. And then we have white teachers. And that was the coolest thing, okay? I was a cool kid. So fourth grade, I went there. So the first day they put name tag on our desks, right? So pick a seat. And the seat you pick, it has a name. And that's your English name. So sometimes you see teachers like, oh, come sit here, okay? That child sits at David. No, I think Michael fits you better. You look like a Michael. So I sit down and my name tag says Lily. So I was Lily. But I was only Lily for about 30 seconds. Because the girl next to me said, 不好意思，我可以跟你换吗？我比较想要叫 Lily. So, I was an easygoing child. I was like, that's fine, I can be Amy. It's chosen anyway. So I was Amy in elementary school. And then when I went to college, I was Evon. Why? Mostly because most Americans cannot pronounce Evon. My name is Evon. So they will always think I'm Evon. So I'm Evon, right? So this is the story of names of Taiwanese. This is what we have been going through for generations. People decide our names for us. And it's a cool thing you have a foreign name. So this has a lot to do with identity and self-esteem and who am I? It's very confusing. And I want to confess, sitting here to talk is not my thing, okay? I don't know why I created this to give myself. I am an introvert, so I probably have only 5 friends. And this is not my thing. I have had stage fright since 1st grade. I never taught on 1st grade, and my teacher contacted my parents because of that. And I'm a product of cross-generational trauma. So of course, like the topic, I'm afraid I'm not good enough. I'm afraid I'm gonna disappoint you, okay? But why am I doing this? As a therapist, it's really sad to see, in the US, there's no textbook about Taiwanese American. There's no textbook about helping Taiwanese American in therapy. And also, I encounter a lot of third cultural kids and cross-cultural families. They are not included in any settings, in a lot of settings, including therapy. So, like today's topic is Taiwanese American, but we excluded third cultural kids and cross-cultural biracial children. And there are a lot of them in Taiwan now, and their stories are worth listening. They have fascinating stories. Third cultural kids, a lot in Taiwan, for example, they went to international schools in Shanghai, Thailand, the Philippines, because I have clients coming from there constantly. So their identities, of course, are going to be different from their parents, and they're going to be different from Taiwanese Americans. Language-wise, of course, they don't have problems speaking English. They went to international school, but what they went through, the trajectories, are quite interesting. Why am I carrying a note? I can be very professional and formal, but I'm going to be impersonal that way. And if I put myself in this topic, I'm going to have feelings. I'm in it too. And I'm going to be disorganized. So that's why I need something. I have a goldfish memory now. Because I'm in it too, like all of you. And my personal journey coming back to Taiwan, I protested the educational system. That's why I went to the US. I quit Taidang. I went to the US to start over. I started from ESL program and community college and master's program and work. During those 10 years, I was always on F1 visa and H1 visa, like a student, foreigner. So every semester, there was constant pressure. I have to pass certain classes, and I have to find a sponsor, I have to find a job, otherwise I'm gonna be kicked out of the country. Survival. So it's 10 years of survival mode, and on top of that is discrimination. Obviously English is not my first language, and I got a lot of discrimination and teasing in those years. So I feel I spent 10 years to prove I'm not stupid, and when I look back, I feel this is really stupid to do that. And this topic, so I really admire you. Why you want to come to a topic is not fun. It's very heavy. Okay, you get triggered. You might get triggered. And so when speaking of this, I'm not going to be funny because Taiwanese, I was taught to be serious. I had to remain calm. So I'm not funny. But the good thing about these talks is we get to blame everything on our parents. Good. And why we're not funny? We have to be serious and calm all the time. Because, including myself, I have to cope with signs of danger all the time. Here in the US. Okay, what do you mean signs of danger? Oppression, misunderstanding, being misjudged or misread. Educational oppression, parenting oppression, racial, ethnic oppression. So that happened growing up here, and I went to the US, continued to happen. So, like a lot of Taiwanese American kids, we have to constantly cope with signs of threat, signs of danger. And the reason, coming back to the why, because seeing so many clients, and including me going to my own therapy, I feel we shouldn't go through these journeys alone. And we shouldn't be so lonely along the way and coping with the signs of dangers alone. So we're here together, so we're not alone. So that's probably the reason. And as a therapist, one-on-one work, how many people can I impact one-on-one? Okay, but I feel like, I couldn't really share my stories in the room, but I feel this is important for Taiwanese people and Taiwanese Americans to start having this awareness. We are all children of trauma. We're all intergenerational trauma kids. And it is still happening. It is still happening. So Taiwanese survive family as a unit, not individual. So the whole family have to survive. So we have to take a lot of factors into consideration when we judge people's behaviors and why they do certain things and why family relationships are like that, because it's collective survival. And last month, another why is last month I gave a talk to the first generation in their 60s. They immigrated to the US maybe 30 years ago. It was in Mandarin, and as usual, nobody turned on their microphone. They were hiding behind the microphone. However, interacting with the staff, planning the event, knowing what they want, they're very different. They're very different from the second generation and third generation. They're so polite. They call me 老师. But then they're in their 60s and much younger than them, right? They're so respectful. And they take out their notebook ready to take note. But they're hiding behind the camera. It hurts for me to see that. So when I was giving the talk, it hurt me. They were hiding behind the camera, but they really, really want to understand their children. If they are willing to come out to attend this kind of thing, something terrible must have happened. Otherwise, they wouldn't reveal family secret or seek out for help. Okay, and they have to wait for so long, and they hide behind the camera. And when they ask questions, it's like a vulnerable mother. Like, how do I communicate with my son? How do I help my son? He doesn't leave the house, or he's giving up talking to me, and I want to learn how to help my child. Completely clueless and vulnerable 65-year-old, for example. And it really hurts me to see that. But coming back to my work, most of my clients are second generation and third generation. As you know, first generation, therapy is not their thing. But so in the room, I see a lot of children, adult children, they're struggling with today's topic. Emotional disengagement. They are emotionally castrated. So a lot of them suffer from communicating with their parents, interpersonal relationship, intimate relationships, career. Okay, coming back to Taiwan, they went through a lot of struggles and frustrations and disappointment. And they are all in this alone. So it hurts me to see that the parents went to the United States alone, raised them alone. No feedback, no support, okay? And they grew up alone, feeling so alone. And now they come back to search for their root, still alone. They deserve more than this, okay? They deserve to be heard and to be understood. They are not difficult to understand. They are not. But they are a group really 就是不被看见的一个 population. Why? So here's the thing is, we can continue to stay at this level, but for healing to take place, we have to come back home here again in order to start healing. And that's why we have to touch upon the history. So why I bring history into this topic is the past does affect the present. It does, and cross-generationally. And why do I have a series? I'm an introvert. I gave myself a series of 5 talks. And if you came here through IG, you probably didn't see because it's on Facebook. So there will be 5 talks in the course of 4 months. Okay, so that the healing can be complete. These are the stories I heard, and I feel they are relevant. So I'm going to read you the talk titles. So in June, we have 2. On June 6th, the historical and social context of Taiwanese parents' mental health stigma. And June 20th, father and son, the silence of Taiwanese American fathers. I think male mental health really deserves some attention. July 4th, growing up without role models and guidance. That's a huge thing I see in my practice. August 1st, stories of rerouting and searching for a home. This is a very important because but kind of heavy topic. So that's what's going to happen in the future, in the next few months. But why are we recording this is because a lot of Taiwanese Americans in the US, they want to participate, they want to listen to this too. However, they cannot be here. So I'm thinking they deserve to participate and be part of this and to be heard and to process their family stories and reclaim their family stories. So from next month, I'm gonna design some online talks just for them, and I'm gonna post on Eventbrite. So I'm gonna post that by the end of this month on New Bloom's Facebook. Just wanna let you know the plan. So continue our topic, identity confusion. We start with that, okay? So our parents, before they immigrated to the United States, they already had this identity confusion because Taiwan was always a colony. Either you were Dutch, you were Japanese, you were Chinese, you were Taiwanese. It's very confusing. And on top of that, we have 原住民, 客家人, a lot, okay? So if our parents grew up between the year of 1949 to 1980, they are very likely to suffer from identity confusion. We had our presidential election in 1990. That's very recent. So before that, their leaders were someone else. Okay, not nice to them. And 1990, even if we can elect our president, what's the name, the title of the president? 中华民国总统. Okay, so the Republic of China. So Taiwanese people live in this ideation. A country, a title that exists or maybe doesn't exist. 中华民国. So that's their identity, that's who they are. Their name tag would say 中华民国. And the passport, a lot of them, I don't know if you have a Taiwan passport, but until recent years, we started to have Taiwan on the passport. But then when I was younger, it was just Republic of China. So when I went to the US, sometimes the immigration would ask me questions. So what is Republic of China? Is it China? I always get confused, and I had to explain to them who I am. So children have to explain who they are. That's our responsibility as Taiwanese. And Chinese Taipei, I really want to talk about Olympics. You know the opening ceremony, every country, they would have athletes go to the stadium, right? And then in alphabetical order from A to Z. And then we want to wait for T, because all Taiwanese athletes are going to come up. But they always come up at what? C, because it's Chinese Taipei. But think about it. What kind of name is Chinese Taipei? What is that? And this is very discriminating and humiliating, as if the entire Taiwan, only Taipei matters. Other counties are irrelevant. Okay, if you are from Zhanghua, are you Chinese Taipei team? And our athletes, a lot of them are indigenous. And a very outstanding athlete, they're usually from the south and east. Okay, for example, Dai Ziying is from Kaohsiung. Wang Jianming is from Tainan. Cao Jinghui is from Hualien. Guo Xingchun, weightlifting, is from Taidong. None of them Chinese, none of them Taipei. But they go out and wear that. What is that? Chinese Taipei. So this is identity confusion, and this is going to impact our parents' sense of self-worth. If you don't know, you don't get to pick your name, and people decide your name for you. I think you're Michael, right? So this is going to impact their self-esteem and sense of self-worth. A very interesting happened. So how our previous generation cope with that identity confusion and the low self-esteem. So between around 1960 and 1970, Taiwan had an economic boom. All of a sudden, everyone got rich. Okay, So you can start a business, you can invest in something, you can sell anything, you can apply for job, plenty of opportunity, plenty of money. Okay, you can get rich, very rich. And that's probably why some of our parents immigrated to the US. So that changed Taiwanese people. It healed or saved Taiwanese people temporarily because they have something to hold on to, the pursuit of wealth. And that's why some of the first generation parents, they're so materialistic. It saved them from falling apart. And the second thing is, in the old days, if you can get into a university, you are something, especially women. It's not like right now, okay, 99% of the time you can get into a college. No, our parents' generation, it was very difficult and very competitive. And it's a historical tradition. If you go into good universities like Taida, Shida, Zhengda, okay, you're all set. Because it brings pride to the family. And you're probably gonna get a good job and you have that respect all your life. So getting into a good school, getting a higher education degree, saved the first generation. Therefore, there are two things you cannot criticize the first generation. First is their work identity. The second is their parent identity. Work is their life. They work so hard. So something they are proud of. Work is the identity, work is life. And parent identity is, when they were traumatized and oppressed, they went through a lot of terrible things. A lot of parents put their hope on the children without knowing how it is going to impact the next generation. They didn't know, okay? So it's like, I didn't get to go to college. You have to go to Yale and Berkeley. And I didn't have the chance to go to school, and now I'm gonna save all the money and I'm gonna provide you, 你可以念到博士, okay? Get a doctor's degree and find a good job. And they're never gonna come back to Taiwan. It's a shame. 这太丢脸了。你要在国外是很有面子的。So no matter what, they won't get a divorce and they won't come back. It's about faith, and it's their healing their identity. So I'm going to talk about the 4 common mechanisms of Taiwanese American, because I said, even when I was in the U.S., I was on a survival mode constantly. So for Taiwanese Americans, constantly they identity is immigrant. Immigrant survival mechanism is number 1 is hide to survive, and number 2 is cut off emotion to survive. And number 3 is fitting in, to fit in. Number 4 is be who you are not. So these are the 4 most common mechanisms that I see on my cases. So I'm going to explain each one. Hide to survive, okay? It depends on where you live in the state, your upbringing, your environment. Sometimes you go to school, you go to work, you have to be white enough to survive. Okay, but when you go home, you have to be Taiwanese enough to survive. When you go to your relatives or your community. So children learn, who they need to be to survive. But if they go to work, they have to be white. Then they have to hide part of their identity. So what do they have to hide? For example, they have to hide their immigration status. They have to hide their accent. So. If I speak English as fluently as the natives, people might think, oh, I am just one of them, I was born here. And it brings a lot of privilege. And last, discrimination. 比较不会被欺负. They also have to hide the family problems. No matter what happened in the family, nobody's gonna find out. Okay? They also have to find the history of their parents' families in Taiwan. What happened to their parents. For example, maybe father is from the second family, 小老婆的孩子, or maybe the mother comes from a very toxic, dysfunctional family in Taiwan. Okay, nobody knows what happened there. They start a new identity. So they have to hide and be white enough to survive. And the second is cut off their emotion to survive. This is very common, very, very common among Taiwanese American. Especially when someone has, or when the parents have some mental health issues. Okay, so I hear children grew up, mother is constantly trying to commit suicide, for example. Or mother is always drunk, mother is always, depressed. And under the circumstance, a lot of children, they have to cut off. They have to cut off. Or the parents are constantly fighting. Okay, they won't get a divorce. Okay, but they will fight. The children is overstimulating, and it's very chaotic for a child, that environment. And I also hear a lot of children, they are adopted by parents. Maybe single white mother, for example, and the parent has to work, so nobody's playing with this kid. Okay, it's so painful and lonely, and sometimes you doubt who you are. You have a white mother, but you're adopted. In what language I'm speaking, I'm different from other kids. So this kid has to cut off to survive. And fitting, I guess fitting in is like a daily thing for us. We don't even process, we don't even think about it consciously, fitting. For example, I'm an introvert, right? But in order to fit in the American classroom, I cannot be an introvert. I have to force myself to socialize. I have to force myself to have an opinion, to be expressive, to say what I think. But I'm an introvert. I only have 5 friends. But I have to talk in class all the time. So they have to fake it. And like a lot of Taiwanese kids, they're not interested in sports, but they have to watch American football. So they have some topics on Monday to share with their classmates. Or they hate singing, they don't like KTV. But in order to fit in certain groups, they have to go to KTV. And one Asian American woman works at Morgan Stanley. It's just saying like Morgan Stanley is it's full of Caucasian male, right? It's an environment of white men. And you cannot be yourself there. You cannot be an Asian woman. In order to survive in that work environment, you have to be like them. Okay, so it's fitting in. And then being who you are not, it's like the constant thing, being who you are not. And coming back to Taiwan is another story, but sometimes also being who you are not. Sometimes you have to hide your English. Sometimes you have to, pretend you're like other Taiwanese, so you're not being asked a lot of questions. So ask ourselves, are we being who we are always here in Taiwan? Or a lot of times we have to be who we are not, especially in the work setting. Someone just told me he had to fake his nationality, and say, oh, my father is American, just to get an English teaching job here in Taiwan. So in order to get a visa, in order to keep a job, you have to lie about your identity. It's very competitive. And also, this is the thing about mental health. Our parents, our families, including ourselves, are we being alive, or we're just sleepwalking through life? And inevitably, if we live on a survival mode, that's sleepwalking through life. And that's going to affect mental health in the long run. So a lot of people come here, what they talk about and uncover is this. Okay, I am gonna pause here. Okay, for us to reflect and process here a little bit. Which part of it resonates with you? And what's happening in you right now. I just want to get some feedback. See what's happening here. And whoever wants to share, just raise your hand. I'm going to give you a microphone. Anybody want to share? Yes. Can we give you a microphone? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Hannibal. I was born and raised in Taiwan. Like always, I never like really long stay in America, but like living in Taipei is pretty easy to have many Taiwanese American friends, or like just someone who come back from different country.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, I feel like there are several parts that I can pretty much resonate with that. Like I may be the only, like in my generation, all my parents' friends, children, or just like my cousin, most of them live abroad and most of them live in America for most of their lives. So especially at the part that they may have a parent-children conflict. For example, like they don't actually know how to interact with their children, and they don't think that's a problem. They think it's better for children to have better education, or or to pursuing prestigious job as their major goal, and it's not a real issue to remain in a good relationship with their children. And I feel like that's kind of like tearing apart a family, like even though children try to do something, but it's so easy to like it's so inflammatory or like provocative to talk about that with their parents or just like different kind of family member. So yeah, I'm glad to be here just to listen more stories and then try to understand how does that happen. And I like your point mentioning about the booming of economy during like 90s, 70s, or 80s. And I think the materialistic part of it, it's pretty resonate with some of my experience. Some of the first generation immigrants keep emphasizing how good America is, and then everyone in the family should move there, like that, and then keep promoting and only talk about that when we visit them. So anyway, good talk, and look forward to your following sharing.
Wow, thank you. Our first volunteer, thank you. I'm Taiwanese. Okay, so I'm gonna continue here, and if anyone wanna raise their hand, just raise a hand, okay? You're not gonna be the first one to die.
Glad to hear that. Another thing is that like growing up here, when you are, that is pretty true that if you are the one who talk first in the classroom, like teacher may sometimes get annoyed about it, or just like classmates wouldn't appreciate that too much. They just want to hear more content from the teacher. Right?
Yeah, it's the opposite.
So that's kind of like interruption of the class.
Yeah, they don't want you to stand out here, but they want you to be unique in the US. So, we learn how to adapt. Okay, so here's the thing about the first generation. They have colonization plus immigration. That's double layers. So it's different when we talk about trauma, intergenerational trauma. So what they're carrying is actually two things. Colonization, memory, and trauma. And when they immigrate to the US, it's a second layer, immigration trauma, but underneath that is the history. So that makes things more complicated. And that's why it's hard for them to open up. They don't know how to start. It's complicated. And we talk about it's difficult to talk about identity and self. So for people immigrated to the US, the identity might get diluted or even more complicated to talk about and to think about. So they just don't talk about it anymore. They don't talk about it anymore. Just survive first. 先活下来再说. And for children, okay, for any children to thrive, we talk about attachment, right? Every children need a reliable, wiser, and emotionally stable adult, a parental figure, an adult. However, what happened with the colonization trauma and immigration trauma, and it gives the parents some traits. For example, they're very practical and rational. They can reason with you, 跟你讲道理, but they don't respond to feelings. Sometimes they don't know how to, and never had that experience themselves, so they don't respond to feelings. And the second thing is self-control is a virtue here. So in Taiwanese parenting, they want kids to have the ability to have great self-control, including your negative emotions. And by self-control, they mean 忍耐, 要忍耐, endure. So 忍耐 is a Taiwanese trait you can see everywhere. 不管你遇到什么事情，你的老板对你怎么样，就忍耐. And it's gonna be okay. So a lot of women, mother, they just endure. It's gonna be okay, okay? The marriage is gonna be okay. The children are gonna grow up okay. Just 忍耐. Your mother-in-law is treating you badly. Just 忍耐. So a lot of 忍耐 in the family. And 顶嘴, just kids are taught not to talk back. But it cut off communication. If we don't talk back, how do we have a dialogue? How do we communicate our emotions? And you know, in the Taiwanese, there's a saying called meaning that children have ears but no mouth. You just listen, you don't express your opinions. So children constantly being rejected and minimize their feelings. For example, if children want to approach their parents, you know, I really have feelings about certain things. I'm really angry about this. They often get rejected of that emotion, just push back or minimize. 没这么严重. Okay, so I'm feeling depressed. I don't feel like going to school. 没那么严重，你想太多了，去运动就好了. Okay, so that's how they are responded of emotion. And a lot of times they are being shamed when they have feelings. Like no one is so sensitive like you. You're too sensitive. Why would you feel like that? Your sister doesn't feel like that. Your brother doesn't feel like that. Why are you special? You stand out. So feelings are shame. And I think the worst thing is emotional blackmailing. For example, 我为了你不离婚，我为了你移民到美国，我没有工作， I gave up my dancing career so that I can take care of you and your brother. And, you know, I stayed in this marriage until you go to college. Or I sacrificed my job, I gave up my job for you, for your education. I don't know, how many of you heard of that? Either you, your relative, okay. What is that? So this is a love language. A lot of Taiwanese parents, they demonstrate this. They love by sacrificing. And I see again and again in my couple sessions, a lot of Taiwanese American adult children, they learn that. Love by minimizing their voice and needs. Love by sacrificing for the other person or for the family, for the greater good. Okay, sacrificing. I don't know how many children, when you hear your mother says that, you feel good and thankful. It's a weird feeling. Like, you gave up that for me. So what do I need to do? What do I need to do now to give you back, to pay you back? How can I pay you back? You sacrifice your in the 青春 and stay in this marriage. And how do I pay back that? But a lot of parents have expectations when they say that. So you have 听话, you have to 听话. You have to get into good school, have a good job, or get married, have kids, make me proud, 让我们放心. So there's no emotional boundary. 你要让我们放心. Okay. So psychologically, it's very stressful for Taiwanese American adult children. The parenting and communication style. Okay, I want to talk about two things. Okay, it's kind of funny, but it's not. Taiwanese parents tend to be very direct when they are correcting their children. For example, 你的屁股太大了，要减肥了. Your body's too fat, you need to lose weight. I mean, who talks like that in school in the US at work setting? Or what else? Oh, we want to apply for something, right? 那个太难了，你考不上，不要考. You won't get in, don't apply. And then they would point out fault. 不会不好意思 point out your fault, because for them, being a good parent is play that disciplinary role. They have to discipline you. They have to tell you the ugly truth. So this is very strange for Taiwanese adult children, because when they are being so direct, so you have to, so this is a superpower Taiwanese American children have, code switching. They have to distinguish. At school, when you call someone fat, it's impolite. But at home, when parents say that, they don't mean it. They mean something else. So they have to translate that sentence. So a lot of Taiwanese American kids, they know how to code switching. So compliment. Well, Taiwanese parents are not good at giving compliment. And in education, they always encourage teachers and parents to have the 5-to-1 ratio, meaning give 5 compliments before you give 1 criticism, right? But I want to ask you, how many of you grew up in a family of 5 compliments and 1 criticism? Raise your hand. Nobody? Okay. How about the other way around, like 5 criticism and you get 1 compliment?
No compliment.
No compliment. So a lot of children complain, parents only approach me, talk to me when I did something wrong, when I need to be corrected, when they want to discipline me. No compliment. And it's very confusing. But the parents think they are doing good things for you because 不要太骄傲. So culturally, they don't want you to be too arrogant, too much pride. That's what I think. So I have a white friend working in San Francisco high-tech company, and she said that, she's a manager and she needs to have one-on-one meeting with each staff. And she told me, like, every time I have meetings with these 2 Asian colleagues, I feel those one-on-ones are like coaching sessions. I have to tell them and reassure them they're good enough. It's okay, you're not doing a bad job. In fact, you're doing a great job. So she said that when Kevin says, I'm so afraid I'm gonna do a marathon in LA this weekend, and I'm afraid I'm not gonna do well, that means he's gonna come back with number 3. But there are good things about that, right? Because never feel good enough. There are some pros and cons, they're good things. So we can achieve more. But you know what? This confuses children. Because a lot of children constantly feel they are not good enough. And it can continue to, when they are 30, 35, 40, they still feel they are not good enough. But when you talk to the parents, when you verify with the parents, they will say, 哪有，我觉得你很棒啊，你很好啊. But then you'll be like, you just told me I have these 5 bad things and 1 good thing. And how is that good enough? So it's sending confusing messages to children. So a lot of children, they grow up, but the parents are not aware of they're doing that. Okay, they might feel they're so proud of the children, but when they say things, it's the opposite. So the children will grow up with that kind of feeling. I am disappointing my parents. I might disappoint my parents. And that is a great fear, disappointing parents. Because for a lot of immigrants, parents are all they have. And if they disappoint parents, the end of the world. They have nowhere to go. And the only source of recognition and acknowledgement is gone. So not getting compliment and validation really turn a lot of children into this not good enough survival mode. So what would they do? For example, these are the very common signs, right? They constantly change their schools, not good enough. They constantly change jobs and partners, not good enough. They cannot stay at one place for too long. They always, when they complete one project, they have to think about the next one. Okay, they don't even have time to receive the prize and to validate themselves. And then, a lot of parents come to me worried is that I really want to understand this because I'm afraid it's going to affect my daughter. I feel like I cannot accept my partner. I cannot accept myself, and I'm starting to not feel my daughter is okay. I feel she should go to a different school. I feel she should choose a different career, and I feel she's not trying hard enough. Okay, and I want to understand this. I'm afraid of hurting her. So there's hope. So there are some parents, they are aware of this, and they want to find out. So the topic is, you should feel grateful. A lot of Taiwanese people, parents say that to the children. 你应该要觉得很感恩，很幸运的. You're lucky that you came to America. You were educated here. Have this job and education. But logically, how do we feel grateful if we constantly feel not good enough? 这逻辑是不通的. It's very funny. So going back to parenting philosophy. So if you grew up in the 1960s, what's the definition of a good parent? As long as your children don't starve to death, you are a good enough parent. 真的，就是你不要饿死就好了. And that's the truth. I'm not exaggerating. So the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You need to fulfill the basic needs, right? In the 1960s, 70s, people were really just try to make the needs met, right? So they grew up thinking that's parents' job to provide. And they don't understand mental health. There was no such thing in Taiwan until recent 5-6 years, to be honest. It's that new. So when children grew up in America, they were constantly educated about mental health in school or other settings or media. Right? And they go home and look at parents, how come I don't have this? And the parents are like, didn't I provide for you? So this is like 2-channel parallel communication. Yes, I am being a good parent. Why are you complaining? But the children are asking for something the parents never got themselves, and they have no clue what that is. And this is very, very interesting phenomenon, real estate or inheritance. A lot of parents, they would accumulate wealth, would save money to buy real estates, but not for themselves. So they can save enough for their children. So they are very stingy on themselves, and maybe they are stingy on their children, but all the money will go towards inheritance. So for them, if I provide inheritance, that's a way of love, and I am taking care of my children. So when you talk to them, Mom, I want to I want to talk to you about parent-child relationship and this love and communication thing. They would be puzzled because all their life they are doing that for you. So they are kind of confused. What does that mean? Something is missing. They are doing their job actually. 孝顺养儿防老. So a lot of Taiwanese people they grew up having that concept. 你们知道什么是养儿防老吗? You have a child, so when you retire at your old age, you're gonna be taken care of. You're covered. So that's the purpose or the expectation of having a child or having a next generation is that when you get older, there will be someone who take care of you. But that expectation, when it goes to immigrants, well, it's going to be funny. Well, different outcomes. Either children are unable to take care of their parents physically, financially, or in the U.S. there's just no such concept. Everybody is an independent individual. So parents might feel a little bit disappointed. I sacrificed my life for you, and now no one is taking care of me. But there are other scenarios. Parents are very understanding. They arrange everything, the retirement plan for themselves, and they don't want to bother their children. But that's another story, bothering their children, because a lot of children, when their parents get ill, they really want to be close to home and take care of them. But the parents will feel great fear. I'm useless and I am causing my daughter trouble. So they will push the daughter back. Okay, I don't want you to take care of me. So that creates a misunderstanding. The daughter will be like, how come my mom doesn't want me to take care of her? It hurts me to see she is there living there alone. So I hear that kind of scenario too. And by paying back, what are parents' expectations on paying back? How do they want to be paid back? I think it's case by case, family by family. There are parents, they don't need any payback, okay? But it's true, some parents, they expect, like every month, you need to give me an allowance, okay? Buy a house for me or pay for my trip, things like that. Or pay me back sometimes can be emotional blackmailing. There's a lot of payback stories because I sacrificed my life for you, I produced through college. Now you have to listen to me and do this for me and be this person for me. Be who you are not for me, and that's payback. So parents are afraid of their own emotions, and therefore they cannot have this emotional communication. In Taiwan, it is true, up till recent years, families at dinner tables, they don't talk about feelings. They talk about what happened in school, what you need to submit, what's the next step, the plan. But nobody's talking about emotions and feelings, how to deal with that. So this is completely blank piece of paper, okay? So for a lot of parents, when you talk about feelings, it's kind of triggering for them. Because they have this concept, parents have to be better, they have to discipline the children. I have to know it, and tell you what to do. But they are being challenged by something they're completely unfamiliar with, okay? And they will feel vulnerable and useless. They're not good at that, okay? So it's really hard, it's really difficult to bring two people closer by asking one person to do something he or she is not good at. So that's the thing. You force them to talk about emotion, it's gonna get opposite result. As a result, some children have to detach from emotion. There's no way that could let out the emotion or communicate and get responded. They can seek out other windows, but if they don't have other people, they're probably just gonna be detached from emotion. So here are a lot of cases that I hear a lot. When children are being vulnerable, it's a great opportunity to connect. However, this is true that when they are being vulnerable, they're being humiliated. Okay, for example, they cry or they show they're afraid, 但是被妈妈骂得好惨，被 tease, okay, 被 blame, and they feel so ashamed, so humiliated. They're never gonna try again. I just have someone tell me that today. From adult children, rejection, denial, and blame are also very common. In Taiwan, if you work at a school and your student is trying to commit suicide, the school has to contact the parents, right? Emergency contact. You have to notify someone. And sometimes when there is sexual assault happening in a family, especially on minors, you have to report a case. Okay, the parents get notified. But this is very common here in Taiwanese school. Okay, you call the parents and say, your daughter tried to commit suicide today. So the mom will come to see the daughter, and the first sentence she said would be, 你怎么让家人这么丢脸? You brought shame to the family. Why are you doing this? And this person just committed suicide, tried to commit suicide. And this is the first sentence the mother says. And especially 性侵. For example, the father rapes the daughter, right? And then the other daughter kind of reports the counselor. And when the parents find out, the mother's reaction would be like, 你为什么要告诉别人? Why did you tell other people? You know, as if you betrayed us. Okay, you're gonna bring shame to the family. Then what are we gonna deal with this? So, blame, guilt trip that person. So this is very confusing to children. If they are not emotionally strong, they're gonna crash. So this is what they're going through. And what I'm saying right now, it is still happening, and it's very common because I work with school counselors too. And it's still happening in Taiwanese families. So under that circumstances, do you feel it's normal to cut off your emotion? It is. Sometimes you have to. Sometimes you have to until you're strong enough and you have resources. Today I just had someone told me about this great fear of failure and great fear of disappointing parents that caused his long-term depression. And this great fear of failure, how can I say, prevents him to try new things and take risks to the extent that I don't want any failure. I cannot take any failure because of parents' reaction, how they're gonna look at me. But it will cause a lot of isolation. Disappointing parents is a huge theme in Taiwanese therapy. You might be amazed, even they are a CEO in their 40s, they still want to impress their parents, or maybe just to get a sentence from the parents that you did a good job, you did well. They just want to hear that. I have a 50-year-old crying, a 50-year-old man crying in front of me, that I did so much for my mother, and versus my brother and sisters, they are not doing anything, they're selfish, okay? But my mother only favors other children. My mother never said thank you. So I decorate this apartment, and I want to move back to Taiwan so I can take care of her. But then she said, well, I don't like their apartment, it's inconvenient, it's far away from my temple, I'm not gonna move in. So he feels rejected and hurt. So there are a lot of adult children all their lives, they're waiting for that approval. And that urge, that will is very strong. They can do a lot of things just to get that approval. It's amazing. Saying no saying no is a very difficult thing to a lot of Taiwanese children. Like today, someone told me that I'm afraid to say no to my manager because I'm afraid he's gonna be disappointed in me. I need to tell him I don't think this is a good fit, this position. It's not working. But he wants me to try harder, to work long hours like Taiwanese people, and to be very detail oriented, to take care of all the detail, okay? Go home to sleep and come back to work right away, just work. But I cannot, that's not me, okay? And I want to tell him it's not working. Okay, this is the adult, okay, very competent, educated adult. But she's crying, so vulnerable. I'm so afraid to tell him, as if that disappointment will kill her. And it applies to other settings, intimate relationship with parents too. Because in her life, nobody has told her it's okay, 你不用忍耐. With certain things, you don't have to endure. But no one has given her the permission all her life. So she doesn't know. She doesn't have this flexibility. You can say no, especially when you don't feel comfortable. And you don't have to endure if it's not working. Okay? But a lot of Taiwanese workplace or parenting is like, 你就是继续努力, try harder, work harder, okay? Regardless. So sense of worth for a lot of people, it is true, is taking care of their family physically or emotionally. For example, taking care of a mentally unstable mother, or physically taking care of family, financially taking care of them, especially for men, okay? Because I have clients that struggle with that. It's a lot of stress doing that, especially in the high-tech industry nowadays. And he's feeling this financial burden. But at the same time, he cannot give up that role, because what if I give up that role, I am nobody? As if my role is to take care of sister, take care of mom, especially divorced mom. And I have to provide for the family. And that's the only source of sense of self-worth. And good grades being useful. So a lot of children, before they have a successful career, having good grades, getting into a good school is the only source of sense of self-worth. They can feel they are competent, they feel maybe they are useful for their parents. And having good grades is the only way. And a lot of Taiwanese children pursue the grade to the extent. Is there a life mission? It's their life mission. It's crazy how competitive it is in Taiwan. You need to go to Bushiban, you need to go into certain colleges. Grades are very important. And by good grades, we're not saying about 80, 85%. It's 100%. 100%, 100分. So coming back to the purpose of this talk, right? Why am I talking about this? Because I think the younger generation of Taiwanese Americans deserve some credit. They are most often they are the first one in the family to come to therapy to stop the cycle of dysfunction. And they want to stop it there, and they have the awareness and the courage to face what is wrong. And then think about how difficult that is. They don't have their parents' understanding and support. They are being alone here, struggling with their identity and cultural adjustment, but yet they know they have to stop this family pattern. Taiwanese Americans are probably the most resilient people on earth, okay, because I see a lot of them on the younger generation. The strength, amazing strength of reconciliation and forgiveness, and resiliency and creativity. They're brilliant people. And what's inspiring is, okay, it might sound like we're we talk bad about the parents today, but it's actually not. We're just trying to understand why this happened. But I would say the most Taiwanese parents are good enough parents. There's no perfect parents. Okay, to the best of their ability, they are good enough parents. And I see again and again, love actually can overcome language barrier. This is amazing, how they can still connect with the children and love their children without that linguistic connection. You think about like my parents, I don't speak their languages, I don't speak my grandparents' languages, but we have no problem connecting and perceiving love. And so what is that? It's amazing, it's love. So today's topic, what it really is it's about love. And on top of that, I want to say, because a lot of us grew up not learning this, self-compassion. I think sometimes that's the antidote, is we need to learn how to love ourselves and have a little bit compassion on ourselves. We've been too hard on ourselves. But think about what I just said, right? That's too much on the child to handle, growing up that way. So I hope now we don't have to fake who we are not anymore, and we can be ourselves without confusion and shame. I think that's the purpose of sharing these experiences with you. Yeah, thank you. So we're gonna pause the video so we can interact with the people here with confidentiality. Take a minute to process.